All right, so for my scholarly article presentation, I will be talking about how Semenya, how her wrongful conviction of not being a female led to her not being able to compete in the Olympics for roughly a year and a half. They had to make rulings on whether or not she needed to be tested, as well as discuss if her high testosterone levels would play a factor in letting her back into the Olympics. This paper goes to explain why the ruling should not have taken so long. And the author also disproves the media biases by stating that Semenya was not actually a good of a runner that everyone thought she was. The author debunks the feminism theory within the sporting world, and she also talks about how the sports world is ever changing and it will continue to do so. So for the author's argument, she states that Semenya should have been allowed to compete because she did not excessively break the rules. The rules that were set in place are constantly being liquidized and being rewritten. So what's defined as a clear definition between male and females has not only changed in the past several decades, but has also been added to, subtracted from, and completely reworded. So in the article, the author talks about how Semenya, she had an excellent performance, but it should not have been exceptional enough to raise doubts about her gender. The IAAF constantly changes their rules, saying that some people need to be gender tested while others don't. This is actually highly rude because they base these tests out of outside assumptions. So in Semenya's case, it was because she didn't look like a female and her times were out of the female norm. Um, the methods that the author used to support the argument was the content analysis. So the author, she used quotes from research papers and theses, media bias quotes and sources, and previously accepted theories, assumptions, and norms. She found these both in psychological fields and the athletic field. So then the theory that she used the feminist theory, and it can be related to the competition within sports theory, and it has feminism intertwined with it. So how females are treated in the sporting world. Um, the author, she's big about talking about how Semenya as a female was treated unfairly because of a set of assumptions that was made against her. The author actually brings in some research to prove that the unfairness against Semenya was purely based on assumptions. Because if you look at her running times, they are good, but they are not out of this world. So an example that the author brings up is that even though Semenya's times were better than her opponents, it was still below some other famous female runners. An example that the author brings in is Pamela Gelimo. She took the gold medal at the 2008 Olympics. And her time was actually a minute and 44 seconds faster than what Semenya ran in Berlin. So these assumptions were not because of her outstanding time. It was because of she didn't look like a female and she didn't fit the norms of a female. So the argument, it does not build on outside literature. Rather, it builds on new theories and analyzes the controversial topics. It looks at how different people viewed Semenya's case, and it also looks at the new ideas of sex testing within competitions. And it also focuses on media biases towards Semenya and how they were strictly based on assumptions without prior knowledge or background knowledge. So they looked at how people reacted toward the assumption that was placed on Semenya and the testing that they ended up having to run on her because she didn't fit the norms of females. I believe that the author supported the argument. She did an exceptional job of doing this. Not only did the author look through the lens of sports in the field of competition, but she also viewed it through a psychological perspective with a heavy emphasis on feminism and how it was evolved throughout the years. So in conclusion, I believe that the author, she did an exceptional job of portraying how unfairly Caster Semenya, how unfairly she was treated. And it points out the flaws within the feminism theory and how not fitting the norms caused issues on this topic. And it was because her times they were good, like I had mentioned before, but they were not outstanding. So just in general, this whole situation should not have happened. So thank you for listening.